The Bible says, in the book of Genesis, that Adam fell asleep. But it never says he woke up. Guess what? Most of us, certainly include myself here, are sleepwalking through life. So I have to stop every once in a while and remember, what am I doing here? Why am I doing it? John the Baptist came out of the desert. He said, repent. Now that had nothing to do with sin or evil or bad things or whatever corrupt stuff might have been put in your mind by people who didn't know any better. It simply meant wake up. You're asleep, man. For just one simple reason, you're not even seeing the beauty around you. When was the last time you really appreciated that? Just around you. Are you awake? I don't know about you, but I go through cycles of being awake and being asleep. I'm very blessed sometimes because I have the opportunity to put a sermon together or do a class or do this or that. So I have to be really conscious of higher consciousness and what's going on. But then you know what's going to happen is I'm going to fall back into my old natural normal routine and I'm going to fall asleep again. And then something's going to happen. Might be a message from my grandson, might be a line from a song comes to my mind, might be a photograph that I see. Something comes back and wakes me up to the idea or the sense that there's a much deeper truth than this ego-driven, personality-driven world that I seem to live in. We all know there's more than that. But I forget to even ask the question, is there any more than that? I fall asleep again, again, and again. I'm convinced, and I could change my mind about this, but I'm convinced that part of our trip here on planet Earth is probably to go through those cycles of waking and sleeping, of being aware and being unaware. And when you become aware again, when you wake up again to a deeper reality, that you don't beat yourself up for falling asleep, but you allow yourself to be grateful for being awake again. I know that probably sounds overly simple, but that seems to be a lesson I'm learning again and again and again and again. Wake up. How much of my day is spent in spiritual awareness? Beyond the realm of judgment, beyond the realm of separateness. When I count the number of hours, number of days, number of hours, minutes in the day that are spent in prayer, meditation, or just simple awareness. You don't have to be in a monk, right? But just walking in gratitude. Putting on clothes and saying, I'm warm, having a shower in the morning. Here I am. I wake up, press the snooze button. Don't really want to get up, but I have to go to the bathroom. Oh, it's too warm, I just don't want to get up. I get up anyway. And then one of the first thoughts that hits me is, now what was I so worried about yesterday? Did you ever do that? And you know, for a while, for a split second, it's not there. Where'd it go? For maybe a minute or so, I'm chewing on this. What was I so worried about yesterday? And I can't remember. And then all of a sudden it's there again, of course. Well, where was it when I didn't remember it? It didn't exist. I didn't know it didn't exist, but I go hunting around and find, there it is. What was I so worried about? Oh, there it is. Thank you. Now I can get back to worrying about it. Wasn't there. Was it an illusion? Wasn't there 5 minutes ago. There it is staring me in the face. Oh, and I get up and it's, I'm putting out my clothes and I think to myself, oh, I need to do the laundry. I need to go to the dry cleaners. Well, let me take a shower. Well, no, I shouldn't take my shower first. I should meditate first. But I don't really feel like meditating. So does it really count if I don't feel like meditating? If I meditate, does it really count? Well, why don't I let me just take my shower. Oh, I need some soap. I'm running out of toothpaste. What am I going to have? Oh, I'm too late. What am I going to have for breakfast? Oh, I think I'll go buy McDonald's. Well, God, I went by McDonald's the last 3 days. It's not very healthy. Oh, the heck with it. I think I'll get a muffin and a cup of coffee. Now, what do I have to do today? Oh, yeah, I have to call the vet. I have to mail in that check. Let's see, I have to do that. And on and on and on and on and on. The day unfolds. Minute to minute to minute to minute to minute to minute to minute. And the question is, where was I? Where did God? What happened to my soul? What happened to my spirit? What happened to the essence of who I am? I mean, I can spend days like that. I'm sure you have too, where I come to the end of a day or I come to the end of a week and I know I did all the important things I was supposed to do, but where was I? I wasn't here. I was occupied with all of this physical world, material world stuff, and I forgot the essence of who I am. How do I remember? How do I awaken to my sense of worth? That's my question this morning. How do I awaken to my sense of worth? And I'm going to quote something that I think Ramisi quoted a couple of weeks ago, and I've heard a number of other times here, but it always deserves repeating for me. It's from Marianne Williamson. She says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve you or the world. She also said, at another time, another space, that your ego would like to think that if you ever showed yourself to who you really are to other people, that everybody would run away in horror. Whereas the reality is, if you showed yourself as you really are, they would be overcome by the light. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that anybody would be overcome by your light? The truth of it is, that's the possibility we are being asked to open ourselves to. Margot and I went to an online workshop a couple of weeks ago. A friend of ours had recommended it. It's kind of a support group sort of thing, and so she thought it was very good, and so we decided we'd check it out. Didn't really speak to us a whole lot, but it was nice. But right towards the end, the theme was, of course, around Thanksgiving. It was about gratitude. And the leader of the group asked Margot and me if we wanted to say something, being the newer members of the group. And so I said something rather profound that I have no idea of what it was. And then it was Margot's turn, and Margot said something like, I am most grateful for this wonderful man that I'm married to. And immediately my mind flipped into this space and said, who is she talking about? Couldn't be me. And I noticed what happened was I immediately fell into that state of mind which I call not enoughness. That's still waiting in the wings. All of the work that I've done, all of the workshops that I've led, all of the talks that I've given, all of this, all the books that I've read, all of the other, and it's still there. I'm not judging myself for that. But I want to realize that sense of not enoughness, that sense of something lacking or something missing, that probably most of us have an experience of, is not something to be beat up or pounded into submission. But it comes about through loving ourselves minute to minute, moment to moment, as best we possibly can. Self-love is a continuum, 0 to 100. And most of us aren't at 100, but none of us are at 0 either. What we're doing is we're not praising ourselves for being in one space or another, but saying, in order for me to measure this whole, not even measure it, but in order for me to be in this milieu, in this neighborhood of self-love, I want to be able to, like we did with that meditation this morning, I want to be able to turn the light on me, just for a moment. Self-love usually happens when you're doing something you love. And when you're thinking about someone or something that you love. It's fairly easy to turn that around. It's never perfect, but it's not supposed to be. It's a paradox. Because the way the mind works, it's like to say, well, you're either perfect the way you are, or you're going to be perfect tomorrow, or the next day, or the next day. Whereas the reality of what my spiritual self tells me is, you are perfect just the way you are in this moment, and you will be even more perfect 5 minutes from now. So I had a tough time wrapping my head around that one until I thought one day about, I sat with that for a while. With the student said to his teacher one time, "Master, why am I so unhappy? Or why is everybody happy except me?" And the master said, because they have learned to see the beauty and goodness of the world all around them. And the student says, well, why can't I see it everywhere around me? And the master said, you cannot see outside what you fail to see inside. You can't see outside what you fail to see inside. I remember when I first came across A Course in Miracles, they had a whole section on what they call special relationships. And they were kind of going like, special relationships, ooh. Of course that created a whole other thing in my mind. It sounded like the old church condemning me for something. But what they were saying was special relationships, or what we call special relationships, really getting in the way of you loving yourself and loving other people. And I went, oh, that's a lot of hogwash. I have a special relationship with Margot. I have a special relationship with my grandkids. You know, that's garbage. That's nutso. But I chose to sit with it for a while and let Spirit speak to me. Because I know whenever I'm objecting to something that vehemently, there's usually a truth there that I don't want to see. So I'm kind of pushing it away someplace, but there it is. And so I sat there for a while with it, and this, I won't say this voice, but this inner awareness came to me and said, Gerry, remember when you were up in Chicago around Christmas time, and you were walking around holding your first granddaughter, and she had one of these sleeping bag things that little babies have, and I was holding her just right up to my chest. And I could feel her heart open, I could feel mine open. And Margot or my son-in-law, my daughter-in-law might say, do you want us to take? I said, no. She was getting heavy, but it was fine. I was just loved carrying her around. And the Spirit said, remember that moment when you realized how much you loved her? I said, yeah. Well, that's how you're being asked to love everybody. I went, oh. That's how you're being asked to love everybody. Oh, for that moment, I'm going to forget about it, but for that moment, I got it. That's how you're supposed to love everybody. I was giving a workshop years ago when I was walking up and down the aisle, and I was I think it was on codependency. Somehow or another, codependency disappeared. I'm not sure what happened to it. Remember we used to talk about that in the 80s and the 90s? It was workshops all over the place. And then it kind of went poof. I'll let you know it's still around. Okay? But anyway, I was saying something about giving your power away. And I remember I walked past this lady who was sitting in a chair, and I heard her say sort of this stage whisper. She said, what power? And I realized from the tone of her voice and what she said, she had no idea at all, none, that she had power herself. That she had been taught, like so many of us, that you don't really have any power yourself. That somehow or another you are weak, you're wounded, you're hurt, you're broken, and nothing can ever fix that, except maybe the priest around the corner or something. What power? I learned, when I grew up learning that I had a soul, an immortal soul that was made in the image and likeness of God. And it was so wonderful to learn that. I said, that's great. But it never did anything. I mean, the world of flesh and the devil would come along and they would kind of scoop me up and move me over this way. And my soul was kind of over in the corner going, oh, like Mr. Bill. Oh, no. It never did anything. Nobody ever told me the soul had power. It has infinite power of manifestation of creation. I never knew that. So I always kind of put myself in that place of being powerless. We've been taught by so many people who didn't know. We've been taught what they don't know. They were living in their own ignorance and they passed it on to us. Like, oh Lord, I am not worthy. Remember that one? Oh Lord, I am not worthy. You know where the story of that came from? A Roman centurion went up to Jesus and he said, Jesus, could you heal my servant? And Jesus said, this is a kind of a very quick translation of the Aramaic. But Jesus said, basically, he said, well, where do you live? He said, well, I'm kind of down the road a little bit. Okay, well, show me where you live and he said, Lord, look, I don't want to bother you. I have enough faith in you that you can work the miracle of healing my servant from where we stand in this particular place in this particular time right now. You don't have any place to go. You don't need to go to my house. I am not that I am not worthy, not that there's something wrong with me, not the way it was translated in our minds before, but I don't want to bother you. I have faith that you can work this miracle from a distance, so please do that. You don't even have to show up at my house. The only thing that's getting in the way of my beauty, my sense of love, my sense of completeness, my sense of wholeness, is my perception of myself. There's a big challenge here. Do we continue to choose to believe, and this is deep-rooted in each one of us because I know it's deep-rooted in me, do we continue to believe what we have grown up with, or we decide that there's a better way, that that's just a story we bought into. And we bought into the story because other people who taught us bought into the story. I was sitting in my little apartment years ago, my little carriage house apartment off Bardstown Road, and I think I had my guitar in my lap. And I remember I wasn't feeling very good, not physically, I was feeling a little bit depressed, which is sometimes it was a normal state for me, okay? But I wasn't feeling all that great, and I decided, I said, I wonder what God thinks about me. And so I kind of threw that out there. I said, God, what do you think about me? And all of a sudden I said, well, maybe I shouldn't have asked that question, okay? Maybe I'll get an answer I don't really like so much. But it was one of those prayers that had an immediate answer to it. And what was so beautiful was the answer that came back to me was, you are my son, and I love you. And I started to cry. And immediately my ego jumped in and said, oh, you just made that up. And I almost bought that. But my spirit said a little bit further, he said, you know, that's too good an answer for you to make up. It's the truth. You are my son and I love you. You never lost your worth. You never lost your beauty. You only thought you were an ugly duckling. Here's the secret. The ugly duckling didn't have to think himself into being a swan. He already was. You can't manifest what you already are, but you have to realize it. You have to be conscious of it. You have to embrace it. It's not the little engine that could. Spirituality is not, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. It's not letting the lower self raise you up to a higher consciousness. It doesn't happen by force. It happens by surrender. It's not by creating a higher consciousness. It's by knowing that it already exists. Remember, Oz never did nothing to this Tin Man that he didn't already have. Remember that one? Oz never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. Discovering the beauty within and discovering the God within, just like that song we were singing a few minutes ago. Recall that meditation we did this morning. How you opened up as best you could, no judgment about the level of consciousness here, you opened up to the deepest truth you could possibly open yourself up to. You didn't create something that divine consciousness, that love of self, that love of you, that love that's coming to you, that love that's moving through you is already there. The ugly duckling never was an ugly duckling. It was always a swan who just forgot. I wonder, I really wonder, can you see the light in your eyes that other people see? What would it be like to see yourself as the one who loves you, sees you, as God sees you, as you did in the meditation this morning? What would it be like to turn around just that whole sense of being loved to what would it be like to be loved by myself that same way? Without exception. Because that's what we're being called to do. I can't hold anyone or anything in unconditional love unless I'm willing to hold myself there first. That's the challenge. I cannot hold anyone or anything else in unconditional love unless I hold myself there first. My prayer so much these days is very simple. Lord, that I may see. Not only let me see other people as you see them, as you see through their darkness, as you see through their pain, as you see through their fear, as you see through their separateness. But Lord, that I may see me as you see me. Can you imagine what that would be like? Can you imagine what a minute in your life might be like? 5 minutes in your life might be like? 10 minutes, 20 minutes. What would it be like to see yourself as God sees you? Lord, that I may see. That I may see beyond my fear, see beyond my separateness, see beyond what separates me from you and from other people. May I see beyond all that to the truth of who I am. And that's what I leave you with this morning, because I see you this morning as the truth of who you are. I remember Jack Poole's favorite line from the movie Avatar. It was one of these strange blue beings talking to another one and says, I see you. Not I see you on a physical level. I see the truth of who you are. I see the truth of who you are. Thank you for letting me see the truth I am. Have a great week.